Right? Yes. Harry Potter took on Voldemort and won, right? Matt Dillon was on Gunsmoke for over 20 years and never got killed. The hero slays the dragon and the good guys win over evil. And I don't know about you, but I'm never going to another movie from a book by Nicholas Sparks because the good guy always dies in his... He killed off Kevin Costner and Richard Gere. I don't need that in my life. I don't need that, you know? I want the good guys to win. This week, Michael and I were listening to music, and we heard The Age of Aquarius. Remember that great song from our generation? Man, was that us? We came to change the world, and it was going to be a world where the good guys always won. And there was love and peace and harmony. Wow, and it seems like in some ways we've gone backwards. That the good guys are losing and the evil is winning. You know, that old thought system, that we came in to break up is not going quietly into the night. But there is a fire starting, literally, but there is a fire that's starting to spread. And people are standing up to that false thought system of fear, hate, and separation. So when I was praying about what to talk about today, I had just heard the song, The Age of Aquarius, and feeling sort of depressed that it wasn't fully the way we thought it was going to be yet. The voice spoke to me of an old traditional phrase that said, you have to separate the wheat from the chaff. Remember that one? That's why we did Bring Into the Sheaves today. It's all about the harvest and the time to separate the wheat from the chaff. Now, what does that mean? Jesus taught in parables through stories that people understood. Stories about farmers and shepherds, housewives making bread, those kind of stories. And I grew up on a farm, and I know that in the fields, the weeds grow along with the plants that you have planted. You know, and you can't pull them out too early because you might harm the good plants while you're trying to get rid of the weeds. So you have to wait until they're the harvest time when they're adult plants and ready, and then you can separate the wheat from the chaff. And the chaff was simply that straw part of the wheat. You know, the wheat was good and you could use it, but the chaff, that was just used for straw. Some versions use the word tares, which was more of a toxic weed that looked like the wheat. You certainly didn't want to have that mixed in with your wheat. You had to separate the wheat from the chaff. But the story doesn't make total sense until you take it into metaphysical interpretation. It's all about states of mind. It's all about consciousness. And when we're harvesting our mind, our mental field of consciousness, we have to separate in our consciousness the wheat from the chaff, the thoughts of truth from the thoughts of fear and separation, those toxic thoughts that poison our consciousness and hold us back. Now, each of us has to harvest our own field of consciousness. We can't do it for each other. We have to take care of our own and harvest that. And we each get there when we're ready in our own time. You know, if it takes longer for some than others, that's okay. We're each going to get there eventually. So there are 3 keys that go along with this. The first is that along with our spiritual practice, isn't that why we get together every Sunday? So that we can stay in that truth, that we can stand firm in our faith because we come together to support each other each week, and then we don't revert to those old behaviors, those old states of mind where we became fearful and reactive. You know, once you get that, you can't go back to those old reactive states. But when I first started in Unity, they kept telling us you can't put toothpaste back in a tube. You know, would anyone go back to, I don't know about you, but maybe I had a lot of work to do, but I certainly won't want to go back to the way I used to live. The next thing is that we can't get caught up in the collective consciousness of, you know, deceit and fears and lies. We just can't get caught up in that. But we can offer our consciousness to it. We can lift up consciousness by offering our new insights to it, not being caught up in the collective. Sometimes the collective becomes our default. You know, when I can't hold to my own faith, I'll go into that collective energy that's around me. So the third is, when you're in a crisis, you have to separate the wheat from the chaff and let go of those old unhealthy behaviors of worry and anxiety. You know, the law of cause and effect. Michael always likes to say, don't do the crime if you can't pay the time. You know, you can't do the time. And that's that law of cause and effect. If you're going to stay in that old state of consciousness, that's what you're going to keep getting. So we want to change that and let go of those old reactive behaviors. Now, it's easy to talk about this, easy for me to stand up here and say this is what we got to do. But when it's a personal issue, then forget it. You know, all bets are off. I know when Michael was going through his heart condition and I thought I was going to lose him, man, you know, that wasn't easy. That was, I was devastated thinking I might lose him. And I tell you what, I had some serious come to Jesus talks with God at that time. Some serious come to Jesus talks. And I had some serious prayer treatments to do on myself. I had to separate the wheat from the chaff in my mind. I had to separate the fear from knowing the truth that Michael was one with God. I could separate that fear, that God could work through the impossible that the doctors were talking about. God could work through that. I had to separate the doubt. I had to know my divine strength that I could get through this. I had to separate my weakness, my thoughts of weakness. And I had to separate my confusion and chaos from the knowing that I'm always guided in every moment what to do, and so was he. But that takes practice, doesn't it? It's so easy to say. It takes continuous. I think it's not natural for us humans to do all that work of separating the wheat from the chaff. I think sometimes it's just such a constant discipline to become self-aware and responsible for our field of consciousness that's showing up in our life. I remember when Michael's son Coyote started to have convulsions. It was hard on both of us, but especially for Michael, to have to watch his son having a grand mal seizure. And it seemed to take forever for the medical community to figure it out and get him help. That's my core issue. You know, it's so easy for me to get down on the medical system right now. You've heard the joke about the medical system, haven't you? Where the joke about two doctors and an HMO manager die and line up together at the pearly gates. You heard that one? One doctor steps forward and tells St. Peter, as a pediatric surgeon, I have saved hundreds of children. And St. Peter thought, oh, that's wonderful. Walk through the pearly gates. He let him enter. The next doctor says, as a psychiatrist, I help thousands of people live better lives. St. Peter just patted him on the back and said, go on through those pearly gates. The last man came up and said, well, I was an HMO manager. I got countless families cost-effective health care. St. Peter says, well, you may enter, but you can only stay for 3 days. After that, you can go to hell. There's an evil part of me that loves that. We've all read books like The Celestine Prophecy and The Secret and Discover the Power Within You. But then we have to integrate it. Oh, now I got to go out and pull weeds. I can't just sit and read the book. Now I got to pull the weeds in my mind. Oh my. Such, you know, that takes that spiritual practice of planting the seeds of the healthier beliefs, the healthier thoughts. Because our sense consciousness, what we see out there, plants the seeds of the toxic thoughts and those toxic emotional reactions. Constructive thoughts are the wheat, and destructive thoughts are the chaff. They're those toxic things that have to be getting rid of. And when you watch the news, you really have to separate the wheat from the chaff anymore, don't you? Separate the bullcrap of the world from knowing that the kingdom of God is among us. That's a lot of separating. That's a big discipline. Separating, no, I'm alone here, from no, the one person's one power is moving in and through all things. Separating the wheat from the chaff. And timing is everything. You know, if I tried, especially when I was first came into Unity, if I tried to force out those thoughts before I was really in that early stage of development, it could do more damage than good. But when you come into that deeper spiritual understanding, you're ready for the harvest. Now my plants have grown, and I'm strong enough to separate them. There's a fire starting to spread, and people are choosing kindness over cruelty, peace over fear, love over hate, acceptance over attack. The fire is starting to spread. And we can each have our own personal holographic experience. This is just a hologram out here. We can each create our own holographic experience, no matter what the collective is experiencing, no matter what the collective is doing. We can't use that collective as a default experience. Life is consciousness. And we can't fix it out there. We can't make it happen for others. Anybody here try to make it happen for somebody else? Try to take their inventory, judge them, fix them. It just doesn't work, does it? Well, I thought I'd do something different today. Unity is part of a Unity worldwide ministry with thousands of churches all over the world. And we have a CEO by the name of Donna Johnson. And I thought it would be nice this week to read to you something she wrote that has been going out in newsletters. She said, "Words cannot express the initial helplessness and utter vulnerability we may feel, yet we are far from being helpless victims. We must always remember we are the only ones who determine how we shall live, and living in fear is not an option." Isn't that good? Living in fear is not an option. That would be a good affirmation to say. Filled with clarity and courage, we boldly face the challenges of our times and know that we as a collective have what we have as a collective created can also be uncreated. If we made it happen, we can uncreate it. The answer is a spiritual one. We must address the core conditions that cause depravity in whatever form, that lead to extreme fragmentation of our oneness, and we must do it with wisdom, compassion, perseverance. In a world where ego, power, and fame are seen as the supreme measure of worth, and competition is the means by which it is achieved, we can model a new way of personal integrity, responsibility, and empowerment. And as we continue to focus our discernment and creative love upon the establishment of a shared world of positive fulfillment, we can make that world the reality we see. We do have the power to make that happen. That is our prayer and our decree. And so it is, and so let it be through us, by us, and as us. Pretty good stuff, huh, from our Unity CEO at headquarters. And I would add, first we have to separate the what? The wheat from the chaff. And that takes prayer. So let us pray. And I'll start with a quote from Matthew 4:16. "The people who sat in darkness have seen a great light, and for those who sat in the region and shadow of death, the light has dawned." So right now in our minds, we choose the dawning of the light. We release and let go of that default collective consciousness of fear and separation. We don't have to have that be our experience. We choose our own hologram around us, in and through us. We choose our own light to shine. We choose the higher energies of light and love and harmony and acceptance and caring kindness. And we are so blessed today in each other's presence as we say thank you, Father, Mother, God, in the nature of the Christ. And so it is. Amen.
Please join us in